Edge of Fate launched with a bunch of system changes, including a whole new way to level power. There's no real all-in-one place to see what has changed, but that's what this video is for. We'll go over every system change in enough detail that is needed, and I'll link articles in the description that go into them with more detail. Without further ado, let's begin. Before we go over anything else, let's talk about the new content release structure. Since Forsaken, we've had one expansion a year with seasons or episodes in between to fill the gap. Starting now, we are returning to a time before that and will instead have two smaller size expansions a year with a major update 3 months after each expansion. The first expansion will launch alongside a raid and a second will launch alongside a dungeon. There are no more story seasons. A season now just refers to the 6-month period following an expansion. Don't worry though, the reward pass still exists and there are now 4 passes a year. One alongside each expansion and one alongside each major update. Reward passes now cap at 110 and, at least so far, do seem better than previously. I don't really think we have anything to compare one-to-one, but I would say Edge of Fate is somewhere in between Shadowkeep and Beyond Light in terms of size, and at least to me, Edge of Fate feels fuller in terms of the narrative and the raid, and possibly even the campaign itself, but that could just be my opinion. This is the Edge of Fate, so it feels fitting to start with Kepler and World Tiers. Typically, you would choose between doing the campaign on Brave or Legendary difficulty, but the difficulty in Patrol would be the same as any other planet. Starting in the Edge of Fate, Bungie has introduced World Tiers for Kepler, which determines not only the difficulty of your missions, but the difficulty of Patrol as well. You'll have access to Brave and Legendary World Tiers by default, and then gain access to Fabled and Mythic upon completion of the campaign. There is a quest tied to those tiers, which upon further completion reward you with various things such as a new armor set, enhanced Kepler abilities, and so on. Keep in mind that World Tiers are exclusive to Kepler as of now, or this will likely be the new system going forward, but expect to see this in the Renegades DLC in December. The portal, simply put, is a curated activity browser and is your primary way to gain higher power. You have 4 categories: Solo, Fireteam, Pinnacle, and Crucible. Each activity, with the exception of Crucible, can be modified to lower or increase the difficulty, which in turn affects the power level of your drops. There are 3 ways to modify an activity. The first are challenges. Not like a raid challenge, instead think something that makes the game harder by affecting you or the enemies. Next up are player stakes. These directly affect how you play the game. Locked loadouts and no HUD are 2 such examples. To top it off, you have boons. These are buffs which come in all shapes and sizes, from surges to healing on class ability use. There are various selectable difficulties which unlock as you gain more power, and there are different modifiers available depending on both your activity and difficulty. So, outside of power, what can you earn from the portal? Each category offers a unique selection of weapons and armors to earn, with the exception of Solo and Fireteam, which offers the same. First things first, your power level starts at 10, and this is the same for new and returning players. You can increase this up to 200 by just playing the game. Any gear from anywhere that drops while you are under 200 power will help you get closer to that. Your artifact power is no more, and is instead replaced with seasonal bonus power, which will reset at the end of each season. Seasonal power becomes available after reaching 200, and at that point, gear from the portal will drop above 200 all the way up to 450. Nothing accessed from the World tab will drop gear with seasonal bonus power. Just keep that in mind, the portal is everything. To infuse gear with seasonal power, you must spend unstable cores, which are primarily obtained through dismantling gear with seasonal power. There are some other ways, like through the weekly reward track, but this is obviously capped. Your stats have evolved in many ways. Mobility is now weapons, resilience is now health, recovery is now class, strength is now melee, discipline is now grenade, and intellect is now super. Not only can you now reach 200 in a stat as opposed to 100, but every single point counts towards the benefit that a stat offers, meaning no more waste. Also, a 70 in a stat right now is equal to 100 in a stat pre-Edge of Fate. Going above 100 will give what the game calls an enhanced benefit. These benefits are very potent to the point that loadout swapping is more common than ever before. For example, having between 100 to 200 in grenade will grant a grenade damage boost which caps at 65%. But with great power comes a downside. Any perks or abilities that increase your ability regeneration speed, including super, or generate a chunk of energy, is scaled by the relevant stat. If you want anything to act like it was before, you will need at least 70 in the required stat, and Gambler's Dodge is included in this. If you have less than 70 in melee, then you'll not get your melee back when you dodge. This means that for your combination blow hunters, you will need to dedicate 140 stats to make the loop work as it did previously. Both weapons and armor are now tiered and can drop anywhere between tier 1 to tier 5 depending on your power level, guardian rank, and other varying factors. But what do the tiers actually mean? Starting with weapons, tier 1 has access to the seasonal mods, tier 2 has enhanced traits, tier 3 has 2 traits per column, tier 4 has enhanced weapon mods and components like your barrels, and tier 5 has enhanced origin traits, 3 traits per column, and a unique look. Of course, a weapon has the benefits of its lesser tiers on top of the benefits of its actual tier. Masterworking still exists, but will now also give additional stats equal to the tier of your weapon but only to the non-masterwork stats. If you have a tier 5 weapon with a stability masterwork, then it'll give plus 10 to stability and then plus 5 to every other stat. Now onto armor, and there is a lot to discuss before we even talk about armor tiers. First of all, archetypes. All armor will drop with 1 of 6 armor archetypes, which will determine the primary and secondary stat. Primary will be the highest, with the secondary being the second highest. You'll then have another random stat as your tertiary stat, which will be the lowest. As there are only 6 archetypes, it is likely not going to be possible to get the exact primary and secondary stat that you want. For example, there is no archetype where grenade is the primary and melee is the secondary. However, there is an archetype where grenade is the primary and super is the secondary. Masterworking no longer increases the energy of your armor, which is maxed from the start. Instead, Masterworking will now increase the lowest 3 stats on an armor by 1 for each Masterwork level. Basically, your non-primary, secondary, and tertiary stats will be increased. Armor also has perks that you can activate depending on how many pieces of an armor set you have equipped. Each armor set has a 2-piece and a 4-piece perk, meaning you can either go all in on one armor set or mix and match 2 different armor sets to use both their 2-piece perks. So how do tiers actually affect your armor? The tier of your armor determines the minimum and maximum range of the stats. Tier 4 armor will also have an additional mod energy, and tier 5 will have a random tuned stat and access to the tuning mod slot. This slot allows you to move 5 stats away from any other stat to your tuned stat, or increase the lowest 3 by 1. Your melee, and I mean your actual melee ability, has also changed. Previously, melee buffs followed a multiplicative rule, so every buff was multiplied together to get your end result. This led to some very wacky results, which in turn caused different buffs, perks, and so on to have a different strength and effect depending on your melee and what you combined it with. Melee buffs now follow an additive rule set, meaning they are added together instead of multiplied together. This means that stacked buffs will be weaker than previously, but Bungie has made various melee and buffs stronger to help offset that. And while we're on the topic, Glaive melee is now officially considered an unpowered melee, meaning anything that affects your actual unpowered melee will also affect the melee of your Glaive. You can now launch the master version of all raids and dungeons whenever you like. Desert Perpetual does not have a master version, but similar to activity customization in the portal, you can customize the raid with feats. Feats are basically just raid-specific modifiers that you can enable to make it more difficult and enhance your rewards. Unfortunately, you can no longer gain spoils by just doing repeat clears of the normal raid. You instead need to apply feats, which will reward you with plus 5 spoils per encounter for each active feat. Hopefully the video helped catch you up to speed on a lot of the changes, or helped you understand some of the things that the game probably doesn't do a great job at explaining. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you for watching, have a great day.